Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, Permanent Forum members and delegates. My name is Michael Paul Hill. I am Chair Apache, and I'm here on behalf of the Apache land defenders from El Calabozo Rancheria, El Povo, Redford, and the St. Carlos Apache communities. We, as indigenous border communities with traditional territories along the now U.S.-Mexico border corridor, along with our non-indigenous neighbors in the southwestern border region of the United States and northern Mexico, stand against the political and physical walls, barricades, and fencing that the United States is constructing at this very moment. We urge the Unpfii to bring special focus and critical attention to the colonization, militarization, and industrialization of the Tende, Dene traditional lands and peoples. We ask the Forum to support the peaceful but firm resistance efforts of the Lipan Apache Women Land and Culture Defense and the Southern Athabascan Alliance against the increased militarized occupations and assaults by the United States and Mexico on our lands, culture, livelihood, ceremonies, and traditional sustenance. Of the 2,000-mile-long militarized conflict zone, over 1,400 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border is the traditional territory of the Apache people. The Apache people must be given the opportunity to participate in the environmental, economic, social, and political decision-making in the region. There are currently over 18,000 U.S. soldiers occupying our border communities, with a buildup of up to 75,000 by 2010 and an estimated 8,000 to 10,000 Mexican soldiers currently deployed in the border towns and villages positioned for crackdowns on civil society, indigenous protests against the construction of a Berlin-style wall, which is dissecting Yaqui, O'odham, Opata, Mayo, Cocopah communities along the border. Indigenous women are particularly targeted by the violence that militarization culture imposes on the U.S.-Mexico conflict region, evidenced by the 4,000 plus disappeared and murdered women of Juarez and other border towns. In response to this year's theme of climate, biocultural diversity, and livelihoods, we bring the Forum's attention to the adverse effects of the 18-foot-high cement and steel border wall on the spiritual welfare of the Apache and other indigenous peoples along the U.S.-Mexico border corridor. This physical barrier is disrupting animal migration routes and deterring the growth of native vegetation and herbal medicinal used in traditional ceremonies. The border wall will impede the safe travel on foot, car, and other modes of Apache people back and forth across the militarized zone. Militarization of the border has resulted in the industrialized destruction of habitats, environments, livelihoods, biodiversity, water resources, traditional agricultural practices, traditional food security, and traditional peace practices. To allow construction of the border wall, the U.S. recently waived over 35 laws to build a wall which provided some measure of protection to indigenous people's rights to their environment, cultural, and way of life. We respectfully request the Unpfii consider our recommendations to take an intersectional approach to climate change that involves consideration of militarization, industrialization, gender, and environmental degradation in the United States-Mexico militarized zone.